Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Where the 99 Lead, a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, where we discuss many different topics in and around the UPike campus and community. Special guest today, Dr. Tim Whittier, Professor of Biology and Director of the Study Abroad program at the University of Pikeville. And Dr. Whittier, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Once again.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Always good to have you here. But for those that are just tuning in that don't know Dr. Tim Whittier, let's talk a little about your background and where you come from, where you were raised.
Okay, well, this is my 6th year here. I grew up in Idaho, in a small town in Idaho.
Right.
It doesn't feel that much different. I mean, it's desert and it's big mountains,
Sure.
but it feels very similar to Pikeville. I lived 10 years in Hawaii and 10 years in Arizona. Then I went to graduate school in Hawaii and then did some work in Arizona, and then I ended up here for the last 6. So I did my degrees, biology, entomology, which is insects, and then behavior. Animal behavior is kind of a passion of mine also.
Very good. And of course, the Study Abroad program, we'll talk about that today
Sure.
as well. And I understand that's somewhat of a passion of yours as
Absolutely,
the director
from
of that
experience and what it does to people. Yeah.
I would imagine any Study Abroad program is life-changing.
For every single student, it changes them in a very positive way every time too.
Besides students, what about faculty?
It's one of the most terrifying yet gratifying experiences a faculty can do.
Why the fear?
Well, you're taking 10 to 15 or 20 kids that you don't know that well to another country, and you're just hoping each day something doesn't happen or the kids all do what they're supposed to do, and when they do, it's just so gratifying because you see so much learning and so much bonding and so much growth in such a compact time, and that's the privilege of it, really, of teaching it.
Sure.
And then when you get back and it all worked out, it is so fun. You're tired, but it's really one of the best things, or funnest and best things a teacher can do.
Absolutely.
Because the learning that happens so quickly. I mean, from the minute you get on an airplane, many of the students here have hardly left Pike County, have never been on an airplane, and so the learning doesn't stop. From the time they get on that plane until they get back, it's nonstop learning, and I think they like it and the teachers like it too.
Experiential learning, and that's what it's all about.
That's the core of it right there. Is you learn by doing, and I think that's my philosophy of teaching too. I think being talked to, you learn a little bit, but when you do it yourself and you overcome a problem or you're faced with something that you never thought about and you solve it, you never forget it. I mean, it's with you the rest of your life, and that's really the true learning, I think.
We talk about the fears. I had an idea what the answer was because we had a mission group in the spring, or I guess over the winter, that was making a return trip. The world's a different place when we see some of the things going on, and obviously that changes when you have a large group or a small group of students and having to be fearful of situations like that.
And you think of that. They went to Haiti, and of course the fears that in Haiti something would happen. But the incident happened in Fort Lauderdale, and who would have thought?
Exactly.
But you think about it, and we've had many people approach us like, well, that's the reason you shouldn't do these kind of trips. They're so dangerous. They're so frightening. But on the flip side, think of how much those students learned about the world, about terrorism, about how to handle a difficult situation. I mean, it wasn't planned, and I'm not sure you'd plan something like that. But when they came back, they understood the world much, much better than when they left 2 weeks earlier. So, I mean, if you look at it from a learning point, beautiful. I mean, no parent wants that, but the learning part turned out quite well.
It all turned out well, and they can take that experience with them, and all handled themselves very well. And the media coverage following that event as well. I was impressed with the UPike students able to relate their stories.
Wonderful. I mean, so mature and so positive about it, and they were so helpful down there. And of course, Professor Music does a great job, chaplain here. And I mean, he really led by example on that one, as he always does. And I thought that was great.
Indeed. Of course, as a faculty member, you've worked with students and other faculty on countless study abroad experiences. Let's get an overview of the program of study abroad at UPike.
Study abroad, I guess, encompasses two parts. There's the international program, which brings students in, and that's a separate program. So that's where you see international kids coming here.
Sure.
So it's kind of the reverse. The study abroad that we're talking about today would be where we try to encourage kids to go somewhere else. It may be another country. It may be a trip that's in the United States. It may be an internship in California or Montana. I mean, something that gets them out of this area and go learn something new about the country,
Sure.
something new about themselves. This year, in the next few weeks, I think next week, a group's going to Costa Rica. There's also a group going in the southwest United States for 2 weeks, starting in Louisiana, all the way across to Florida and back up, and that's a bird watching focus.
Right.
And so they'll be doing an ornithology trip. This summer, a professor's taking a group to Scotland for a theater experience
Yeah.
with Kim Willard. And then I'll also be leading a group to Sonoran Desert. We'll start at Grand Canyon, work her all the way down to near the Mexican border, and then back up through Tucson and back to the flight. So, I mean, I think if you're a student at University of Pikeville, there's lots of choices to go do lots of different things. And next year we have several trips planned. We have one to Belize. That's one myself and Darla French will be leading.
Right.
And Rob Music and Summer Bingham proposed a trip to India. That's a new horizon for University of Pikeville, a service learning trip to India. And I think that can maybe really add a lot of value.
Sure.
Now, when people think about study abroad, I heard a great quote at a conference earlier this year. When you think of your kids going to college, what kind of experiences do you think you want them to have? And rarely do you think of, I want them to sit in a lecture hall and be lectured at for
Right.
4 years. And so these experiences of getting kids out and bonding and seeing new things and learning new things is really integral, in my opinion, to a college education. And I think they all react well to it. And I think the ones who take advantage of that grow in ways they didn't expect.
And of course, we talk about study abroad, international students that come here. Those are typically more long-term
Yes.
situations for a semester, for a complete academic year,
Yes,
what have you.
We get both.
Some of the trips you're talking about with the UPike students traveling within the continental United States or even internationally, much shorter.
We get both. The trips, UPike sponsors some trips, and those ones I mentioned there. We also have agreements with other universities.
Right.
One that stands out is an agreement with Nagoya University in Japan. And we have 2 students there currently
Right.
that are attending for a whole semester. So that's a semester or a year-long program. Last semester we had another one. Last year we had 2 other students.
Sure.
So you may see some of the Japanese students here. It's kind of a reciprocal agreement. They go
Right.
there and we come here. We've had students go to China, Germany. This summer we have 2 students for a whole summer. One's going to Italy and one's going to Portugal on kind of a medical-related internship study abroad program. So we have the range. You can go for 10 days to an entire year.
Right.
Just depends on what time you have, and money, I guess, sometimes are expensive.
Right.
And just your desire. So the short ones are popular because you can still do other things. I think the long ones can be more beneficial in
Absolutely.
many ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, many different opportunities available for
Absolutely.
students at the University of Pikeville, and then faculty as well,
Yes.
enriched by these experiences as well. You're heading to the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
And you'll be taking how large of a group?
We're taking 10 students. So we're trying to fit it into one van. And so we'll take the 10 students. They're biology majors, so
Right.
it's a biology, natural history focus. And we'll start at Grand Canyon, work down through Sedona, go down to a research station called Brown Canyon, which it's on a fish and wildlife refuge. It's probably the only building for 1,000 square miles. I mean, it is in the middle of nowhere, but it's a state-of-the-art building and beautiful. So remote that's where there's still jaguars roaming in that area. I mean, people don't think jaguars are a United States animal.
Right.
There's jaguars down there, a few, and they roam in that area. It's so remote and isolated. So I think the kids will have a great time for 2 reasons. When you get down there in Sonoran Desert, every plant and every animal and every bird they see will be something they've never seen before.
Sure.
It's just almost the opposite of Kentucky.
Yeah.
But beautiful in its own way.
Right.
Yeah.
And both having their own benefits to the study of biology or what
Exactly,
have
yeah.
you. We've talked about some reasons that study abroad is so beneficial to the student experience. Obviously, with the travel, that's where it begins. As you said, many students have never been out of Eastern Kentucky or Central Appalachia, making their first that experience. But let's talk about some other ways that these trips and study abroad adds to that student experience.
Well, I think one of the most valuable, especially if you do an international trip, is kind of this cultural exchange where you learn about other cultures, other people, and how they live. Take Haiti, for example. I mean, you really experience poverty, yet this humbleness that the kids all come back and they really appreciate the people. Or you go to Belize and some of the people there, you're up in the forest. So humble, but so kind, so positive, so friendly about life. And you just see you start appreciating other people. And this idea, you hear a lot of hate speech anymore and a lot of bigotry towards different groups. I think the cure for bigotry and hate speech is going to meet those people, because once you meet them, they're people. They're people like everybody else, and you really get to appreciate that. And I think that's some value, some lifelong value. If you're a biology student, then just learn about those ecosystems. So when you learn about them in class, it's not just some abstract image. You experienced it and you understand it. You swim in a coral reef, you understand what global warming or coral bleaching could happen and the damage of it and why it's bad, instead of just learning about it academically. And I think that's part. The other part, the benefit to University of Pikeville, I think, is when students go, it's usually 10 students that barely knew each other before they left. And when they come back, you see them, they're friends for the rest of their life. They're sitting at lunch together, they're talking, they're all taking classes, they're helping each other study. And the persistence of those kids to graduation, nearly 100%. You know, they might have been struggling students before they left, but now they have 10, 15 people that they can count on, that people know them and help them. And it just makes their experience so much better. And that's as a teacher, that's one of the really positive parts, that these kids now have some confidence and have friends and are successful.
Absolutely. Dr. Tim Whittier, professor of biology and the director of the Study Abroad program at the University of Pikeville, our guest, and of course Study Away programs at UPike, the Grand Canyon, the trip to the Southeast. Those are study away programs that are within the continental United States. The difference being continental United States, study abroad would be the international trips.
Right.
Very good. And those opportunities are there. We've talked about some future opportunities, and of course we've talked about studying internationally, perhaps for a semester or what have you. If you have students that approach you about studying abroad, being away for an extended amount of time or a semester, how do you guide those students? How do you counsel those students? How do you make sure that it is right for them and they're right for the program?
Well, that is a struggle. It's a challenge for me a little bit. First, it's what's their passion? What is it they want to do? And sometimes they're not sure. They want to do something.
Sure.
And I don't feel comfortable trying to sell them on something that they don't want to do. So it's really a process of, what is it you want to do? What is it you want to learn? Where do you want to go? Because there's a program for almost anywhere in the world doing almost anything you want to do.
Right.
So getting them to focus in and say, this is what I'm looking for. If it's just adventure, if it's history, if it's some kind of subject they want to do, we can find a spot for them. So then it's just a matter of getting them to commit to it and plan for it, because there's some planning that needs to be done.
Sure.
One of the challenges is not the students, it's parents sometimes, or more of a barrier, that they don't want their kids. The kids want to go and the parents are reluctant. They're more fearful than the students.
Sure.
And that's, I've talked to a number of parents trying to, massage them, make them feel a little bit better, and sometimes successful and sometimes not. And so sometimes that's a barrier in getting kids to go. And then finances, of course. Finances is almost always a challenge, although if you plan ahead, there's scholarships, there's opportunities, there's things that you can do to get them there. So I think I just appreciate that they take that step. It's a leap of faith that they go. I tell them my story. I think I mentioned it on a show before, but I was 17, I guess I was 18. I was sitting in college class, English 100, English 101 maybe it was. I was thinking to myself, what am I doing here? I hate school. I don't want to go to school anymore.
Right.
And the weird thing is, the kid next to me, I kind of knew from high school, not well, but he leaned over and says, do you know Dr. Craner? And I said, yeah, he lives up my street. He's taking a group to Israel. And my head just exploded, and I just wanted to go.
Right.
And I was a shy, you might not believe it, I talk like crazy now, but I was so shy, scared of my shadow. But that day, got my courage, went up the street, knocked on his door, and I said, Dr. Craner? And he goes, yeah, he knew me because he down the street.
Sure.
And I said, are you going to Israel? And he said, yeah. And I said, can I go? And he says, okay, we'll make it happen. And a month and a half later, I was on a plane to Israel.
Right.
So and it changed my life. We were there 7 months in Israel, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's the best thing that happens to almost any kid that goes on a trip.
So you can,
I tell them that story, and it's like, I will testify to you that it's going to be the best thing you ever did. You're going to learn so much.
Sure.
And it's hard some days, but at the end, you're glad you did it.
but because it was life changing for you,
It changed my life totally.
you're able to share that experience. And then once those students have participated in their first study away or study abroad program, what are some of the comments you hear from students?
They're going again. I mean, they don't stop. Once they go,
Right.
they try to go every year or go somewhere. I mean, their world has opened up. Their comments are that it was life changing, and sometimes it's for different reasons. You'd think it was just culturally or something, but sometimes it's just a sense of satisfaction that they did something that they never thought they would be able to do. And that's when it's really fun. You know, we go to Belize and you're out and isolated in the forest. You have to go jump in the ocean to go snorkeling. You're eating food that's by name it's kind of strange and
Yeah.
doesn't look delicious until you try it. And they come back and they've done things that they didn't know that they could do.
Right.
And now they have this confidence and they're willing to try more new things and to get that level. And I think they understand the world too. And I think their vision for what they can do is increased dramatically. And that's satisfying as a teacher. And I think they see it too.
Obviously, you're participating in study abroad and study away programs. Talk about other faculty and their participation in study abroad programs and some of the teaching that they're doing.
Well, like I mentioned, a number of programs. We have several faculty that have done a couple of trips, and each year we try to add new faculty. So this year is Chandra Masner and John Howie doing Costa Rica, which is a new trip for us. That should be a fun addition. Arizona is going to be a new addition. India, which I mentioned with Rob in summer, I think that's going to be a home run because it's so different. And I think recruiting may be a challenge, but I think the service learning part of it, and
Sure.
it's a part will appeal to many students and families here. The theater is a new one too in Scotland. So getting
Right.
kids, they're not just going to Scotland to see a theater; they're going to Scotland to put on a play that was written just for them.
Wow.
So it's at some big theater festival, and they're actually performing in front of everybody and putting it all together. So I mean, that's a great experience to do it
is.
somewhere else in front of an international audience. I think that's very positive. Each year we try to do 3 new trips, and so the next year look for 3 more proposals for different places, and the faculty don't get paid for it. We do it as volunteers for
Right.
the most part, and we do it out of passion because we care for the program and the students, and we think it's valuable to them.
Of course, we talk about study abroad, but also as a professor of biology, let's talk about the biology department just
Sure.
a bit. UPike's biology department recently added the newest residence hall on campus. It's a residence hall for a great number of bees. Some would call it,
I was like, you're talking about something I don't know about, but now I see where you're
some
going
would
with it.
call it a beehive.
Yes.
Some would call it the newest residence hall on campus. Let's talk about how you and the other biology faculty incorporate the study of bees into the classroom.
All right.
And I've got to find out about this beehive.
Well, it's kind of a story there. Last year on my birthday, my sons bought me a beehive. You know, I have a degree. I mentioned earlier I have a PhD in entomology and animal
Sure.
behavior, so it's always been in my mind. But I've never actually done the bees. Either I
Right.
wasn't in a place I felt I could do them, or I just didn't think I had time. So now they bought me this beehive, so it kind of guilted me into let's start it. So
Okay.
I kind of pitched this idea. How about I put a beehive on campus? And I thought maybe there might be some reluctance. Oh my gosh, the response from campus was spectacular. I mean, many of the people loved bees or they'd done bees before, and I got
Right.
such a great support. So then it was just a question of where to put them. So trying to find somewhere safe and that wouldn't be a problem to students that might be allergic and they wouldn't
Sure.
be damaged. And we settled on the roof of the medical school. So the beehive is on the roof of the medical school right now.
Wow.
And so we have access to that roof, and we put up a colony about a month ago. And it's doing fantastic. It's kind of funny because you buy the bees in a little box with a queen.
Right.
You put the queen in the beehive, and you like pour, like water, 3 pounds of bees into that hive and put the
Yes.
lid on, and they kind of take care of their own thing and do what they do. And then they've been out gathering pollen. I cracked it open for the first time on Monday to see how it's doing inside. Loads with honeycomb and eggs, and they're putting honey up already.
Wow.
In 3 weeks. It's amazing that they know what to do.
Being one that has a casual knowledge of bees, there's a new drive for beekeeping
There
in our
is.
region. Tell us why.
Well, for several reasons. One is bees are becoming, not endangered is not the right word, but they're really struggling right now.
Sure.
Even this year, 50% of the beehives in Pike County died over the winter.
Tell us why.
Partly because it was warm. You would think cold winters would be a problem, and they can be. But the warm weather, the bees get fooled into the spring and start getting active.
Right.
And there's no honey or flowers or nectar to feed them, so they eat up all their honey reserves, and then they starve to death later on. So many of them starve to death.
Okay.
So especially the wild bees. So that was a problem. But the more pressing problem is there's some new diseases and mites. Some mites that are attacking them, little 8-legged critters that are kind of like a spider insect combination. And they're really devastating colonies worldwide. And so between the mites and a couple of diseases, beehives are really hurting. And so the population is going down. So there's a big push for people to grow their own and to do hives. The other idea is many people in eastern Kentucky, I thought there can't be too many people here doing it, but I went to the Pike County Bee Association meeting.
Right.
More than 100, 150, 180 people doing beehives in Pike County.
Wow.
It was amazing. Lots of people have been doing it for a long time, but apparently eastern Kentucky is a great place for bees because we don't do much agriculture so there's very little pesticides killing the bees. So many areas that have high agriculture use spray a lot and kill all the bees. So if you're a bee grower and your bees are on that field, you just lost almost your entire colony. So that's good. We have lots of wildflowers. We have all these mine reclaim areas that are wide open spaces for the bees. And so there's a lot of economic benefits for people that want to invest in bees. I haven't gone into it for that reason because I just don't think I have the time.
Sure.
But I think you can if you're interested in doing it as a moneymaker for people too.
I knew there was an organization, and I knew it had some members. I had no idea that it was that prevalent.
My first time I went down there, I thought, well, there'll probably be 10 or 15 people will sit in a circle and talk. Sure. No, it was a whole room down at the extension office. They meet on the first Monday of every month. Full of people. Yeah, it was amazing. And many people have been doing it for 40 years. There's incredible knowledge in that room. It's kind of fun to see people that know so much about bees. And I have a PhD in entomology, and I feel puny in there. It's like, I don't know anything about this stuff. And what they're talking about, I'm like, that is fantastically interesting.
Wow, interesting. And of course, the newest residence, the beehive, on the roof of the medical school, the Cole building.
Cole building, yes.
And now there are 2 hives.
2 hives, yeah, right next to each other. So
Very good.
Yeah.
Who takes care of? Who tends? Is it the biology faculty? Is it biology students?
Well, for right now, it's me.
Okay.
Just kind of get it started because my learning curve, I'm learning a lot about it also.
Sure.
But the ultimate goal is, involve as many students as we can.
Right.
Work study or whoever is interested, get some volunteers to help it. Use it for classes. I mean, I teach an entomology class, so that makes sense there.
Sure.
I teach an animal behavior class, which will make sense there. Other classes that may touch upon it, sustainability, things like that, may also use them. So now we have a resource that we may do it. They're going to put a little camera. I guess there used to be a camera up there facing the construction site for Keiko for the optometry building.
Sure.
Well, the building's built now.
Right.
So they said, why don't we just turn the camera around and face it at the beehive? So in the next month or so, we may have that camera turned around and we can watch the bees remotely. So,
Exactly.
And we can talk about it in class, or I can go out there and do a demonstration and not have 20 kids on the roof. I can just do it remotely with sound or something. So that might be kind of fun too. We'll see how that goes.
Absolutely. Most of America watched a pregnant giraffe for months.
I know.
Standing
there in a stall eating hay, yeah.
Exactly. Most of America tuned in by the tens of thousands to watch this giraffe. Why wouldn't we tune in to watch the bees?
You can watch a bee go in, watch a bee go out, a bee go in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it might be even more fun, yeah.
Absolutely. What have you learned about the bees so far? Something you didn't know.
When I started, I thought it'd be a little easier. It's very complicated.
Okay.
I mean, even though I said I just pour the bees in,
Right.
but once you put the bees in, they can either adopt the queen or not. And if they don't adopt the queen, they kill her.
Ah,
So the whole hive will die. The queen can come out of her little box and fly away. That's what I think happened at my house. She just decided it wasn't good, and they left and took everybody with them. Or the queen can leave by herself and leave everybody behind. So the first couple of days, it was a little dicey, and I didn't know about that. And then these diseases and how much it's hammering the population.
Sure.
It's not something you can just put the bees in and leave, because I think if you do, they'll die off. So you have to manage them. And that part's been interesting academically, but kind of worrisome now that you have a little pet, kind of, you got to take care of them.
Right.
And so that part's been fun. But I think the part that surprised me is I thought it'd be more frightening. You put that bee suit on, you stick your head right inside the beehive, and you just feel you are invincible. You feel invincible, and they're so non-aggressive that the first colony, I've not had a bee even attack me. And I'm in there sticking my hand in there stuff. They just like, they don't even care that I'm there.
Wow.
And that's without smoke or anything. It's just, they're very pleasant little critters. Yeah, I would have thought they'd be like mad or something, but they've been very pleasant. And I think that's the most surprising thing for me, is how nice and gentle they actually are.
Maybe we're more frightened of them than they are us.
I think that's the truth, yeah.
So many people have allergies.
Now, if you have allergy, be careful, because
issue.
it could be life-threatening. But they rarely will attack you unless they feel threatened. So as long as you're not intentionally threatening them, your odds of being hurt go way down.
Very good. Dr. Tim Whittier, professor of biology and beekeeper extraordinaire.
Oh,
at
not
the
yet.
University of Pikeville. You're the only one here for
Well,
now.
I guess so, but there's people in town that are so good. I don't want them to feel like I'm taking their spot.
But how about beekeeper apprentice?
Yes,
Dr.
that's what I
Tim
feel like,
Whittier,
yes, uh-huh.
Keeper of the U-Pike Beehive for the moment, and director of study of broad program at U-Pike, our guest today. And interesting to talk about. And we've talked about ornithology.
Yes.
We've talked about Eastern Kentucky and Pikeville off air before we came on air. There are amazing number of specimens here in our area. Any thoughts of having a community class?
Well, yes, for two things. One, Central Appalachia has got to be one of the most biodiverse places, not only in the United States, but in the world.
Sure.
I mean, in the summertime, we have incredible diversity in plants, animals, everything. We offer several classes for college students. We do the ornithology, entomology, we have a botany class, and then other elements get brought in with parasitology and stuff. As far as a community course, we are actually investigating, I have a meeting next week, to do what they call an informal science education grant from National Science Foundation. And if successful, it is an outreach with this idea of this biodiversity, teaching our kids, but having the kids teach their families about what we have in the mountains.
Sure.
We often hear about Appalachia, how they lop off the mountains or pollute the waters and stuff like that. We don't hear about the positive stuff that, and the beauty of the land. And this is kind of arising from this entomology class that I've been teaching for 3 years. The kids like it, but what I'm finding is they go home and talk to their parents and cousins and grandpas, and they get excited about collecting and seeing what's out there.
Sure.
And sometimes more excited than the kids. And it kind of brings us ideas. If we want to get an appreciation for Appalachia, let's do this thing where we take the kids and have them teach the parents, and we can take it into the schools, and we can have moth collecting nights or have these beehive demonstrations, not just with me, but with that 100 people down at the association. If they opened up their beehives and all their neighbors come and saw that, the learning and appreciation of what's going on would be fantastic. So we see some inroads. It's, you know, the small school time and finding the opportunities, but I'm kind of excited about this possibility of taking it to the community and people that appreciate the land, appreciate Appalachia, but they can appreciate it so much more when they put a name to things, and I think that's really going to help them.
Exactly. I think so many times we don't realize what we have until we hear someone from somewhere else tell us what we are taking for
and
granted.
a case in point is, once you teach people about birds or insects or plants, now they see them everywhere. They'll say, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And then once you teach them, it's every day they see it. They seen it every day before.
Sure.
They just didn't know what it was.
Exactly.
And one of my favorite stories is a student that's avid deer hunter. You know, some of the kids here, that's all they live for. I said, next year when you're deer hunting, you'll be sitting in that stand and you'll forget about the deer and you'll be watching all the bugs flying around. He said, no, I won't. I love deer. I won't. And then, of course, that fall he texted me. He's like, you're right. I'm just up here looking at the butterflies and the bugs and everything. I don't even know if a deer walked by or not. So, I mean, once they see it, it becomes even more rich, even more fun than what they thought it would be.
Absolutely. So good to have you with us again, and it's always enlightening. Dr. Tim Whittier, professor of biology and study abroad director at the University of Pikeville. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great having you. You've been tuned to Where the 99 Lead, a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, the leading university of Central Appalachia.